Well, thank you so much, Andy, for being here with us. I really appreciate it. And thanks, Scott, for making the connection so that we could have this awesome webinar today. So as a brief intro to Andy, some facts about him: he is a Sportsnet national fantasy sports analyst. He previously worked on a sports talk show host on TSN Radio and writer for DraftKings. In 2005, Andy got his start at Durham College doing play-by-play for basketball and volleyball games at Durham College Radio. So love having some homegrown talent as part of our webinar speaker series. So yeah, thanks so much. We know it's a busy time for everybody, so really appreciate you taking the time with us today, Andy. So thank you in advance.
Oh, absolutely. Love being on with you guys and all that. And yeah, being able to sort of look back, remember, it seems like forever ago, 2005, having it all start at Durham College and that opportunity that began right here, which is very cool to look back on. And it honestly, without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So always eternally grateful to the school, to all of you guys.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the live chat as well. We'll be checking and monitoring the Q&A section. But Andy, I first want to start with how did you get in, or when did you start wanting to get into sports broadcasting? When did that become a dream of yours?
Well, there's actually, Scott, there's somewhere, and I think you'd have to find a VCR if those still exist. There's a VHS tape from when I was like 8 years old of doing wrestling play-by-play with a Greg the Hammer Valentine and a Brutus the Barber Beefcake toy. And there was a family video of me doing play-by-play with the wrestlers. And it kind of has always been a part of what I've wanted to do growing up, because I realized early on, like, I love playing sports. Probably wasn't the elite level athlete needed to do that professionally. So you kind of readjust, right? And think, well, if I can't be a pro athlete, I've always loved and appreciated the commentary, the play-by-play, the storytelling throughout the years on radio, TV, and all that. And so from a young age, that kind of developed the interest in me. And then it really popped up after, I guess, during my time at Durham College, and then afterwards, something I really wanted to explore and dive into. And that's kind of gone from there.
So besides the VHS tapes, doing the wrestling, was your start really at Durham College then, doing the play-by-play broadcasting?
Yeah, absolutely. So out of Durham College, I went to got the 3-year business administration diploma, majored in accounting, got out, was working for a law firm in downtown Toronto. Picture like the most stereotypical stuffy law firm you can. It was just boring as anything. Like, man, like I can't do this forever. And so I started thinking back to, okay, look, I've always loved the broadcasting idea of it. And it just so happened on the subway one day, I saw they had one of those little free newspapers, and it had for the National Institute of Broadcasting. Hey, think you got a good voice, whatever, give us a call. And so I did, I registered and went through their program at nights while still working the full-time job during the day. And at that time, so the year after I graduated from Durham College is when the radio station, then the Freak, started opening at the college. And I just thought, well, I just finished this program. I want to do sports broadcasting. I'm an alumni of Durham College. Heck, so I emailed a few times, just the general email, station manager there, Chris Dickerson at the time. I said, hey, this is my story. This is who I am. Would love to meet with you and chat about it. Chris and I hit it off. We're still great friends to this day. And he gave me the shot, and it began with men's and women's volleyball, grew into men's and women's basketball, and kind of just expanded from there. So yeah, my actual first start was at Durham College on the Freak radio.
Yeah, now known as the Riot Radio.
As the Riot, yeah.
They've added video component as well, so you can actually see the games and not just hear the game. So we'll go back to your days at Durham College, but then where did the career path lead you to after Durham College and your degree at National Institute of Broadcasting?
So it grew from the radio play-by-play, like I said, of the volleyball and basketball, and then Rogers TV locally came in and was doing some of the games. So I reached out to some contacts there, just blindly, really. That's where all this comes from too, folks, right? Like, it comes from, you got to make the initiative. I didn't know anybody, right? So I had to reach out and take that initiative. And I saw one day there was a Rogers TV broadcast. Like, well, why not me? And so I contacted them, and then that grew. In addition, to the play-by-play on the Durham College radio to doing some play-by-play on Rogers TV. And that went to the basketball side, that went to volleyball, went to all-star games, and actually I did the CCAA Men's National Basketball Championship, I believe in 2006 or 2007. It was in Brampton. I got to do that. And that from there, that grew my connections with Rogers TV. Well, there was an opening for the IBL, Intercounty Baseball League, minor league baseball, the Toronto Maple Leafs at Christie Pitts. And I started there, and I thought I always wanted to keep building on my sports repertoire. Like I love, I actually love calling volleyball. It turned out, didn't know I did, right? So you want to try different things. So I wanted to keep expanding my repertoire and really become somebody that a company could pick up and say, okay, this guy can do whatever we need. And so the baseball side, and that really helped me on the Rogers TV side grow as a play-by-play guy, because basketball, very high energy, very energetic all the time. Volleyball, you can take it to that level as well. For baseball, you have the spurts of energy, but you have to be more of a storyteller, and you have to keep it a little more level. And that, learning to do that, I did call those games for 5 years on Rogers TV, and that really helped me, I think, become a more well-rounded broadcaster. So it went from there, continuing with Rogers TV, became the play-by-play voice of the Oshawa Generals for a couple seasons. Started doing a CFL show that you mentioned, Scott, earlier before we went on. That Durham College, we used your guys' rooms to do that, and that was again a situation where we were doing the Rogers TV, we were doing the Durham College, and myself and my colleague Carlin Gay, we thought, what can we do to try to distinguish ourselves a little bit, try to take it up? Like everybody does hockey, we all love hockey, but everybody does hockey. So we thought the Canadian Football League. So we started from a independent podcast of just me and him, had the equipment, recorded it, did a full season, full CFL season, no pay, nothing, got guests, used that, pitched that to CBC, and we got our own page on cbcsports.ca. And it turns out that contact there is now at Rogers Sportsnet, and that helped, years later to do that. And that eventually was my foot in the door from the CBC side to get into TSN, because they have the rights to the CFL, and kind of grew from there. So it was all, looking back, it's all kind of funny how it all kind of ties together.
And we'll have to give Sace Narayan a shout out, who was the
Sacer. Love Sace.
At UIT Ontario Tech now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at the time. So going through my timeline, you probably graduated around college around 2000, around there, right?
2004.
Okay, and then you're 2010 now in your Rogers career. So were you working full time at this? You mentioned at the accounting firm, but were you doing both at once? And what kind of got you through that, trying to balance both jobs, a family, things like that?
Yeah, well, great point. And yes, that was the thing. I worked a full-time job, ended up leaving the accounting firm, working for a sales company also downtown. At that time, before 2006, for the first couple of years, I was still living in Pickering, and then got a condo on downtown Toronto. So I would work 5 days a week, your typical, 8:30, 4:30, get in the car, drive to Oshawa through rush hour, do 4 hours of game, a men's and women's game, volleyball, basketball, whatever it was at the time, or Rogers TV, whatever it would be. Drive back, go to work the next day, and kept doing it. And so what drove me, and I see all the time people either not wanting to, or just saying like, wow, how do I overcome that? And there's sacrifice. You're tired a lot, right? You have to keep motivated and keep what your goal is. My goal was to do this as a full-time job. That was my goal. I set the goal. I said, before I'm 40, I'm going to do it. I'm 39 right now. So I was way ahead of schedule, which is good. But I set that goal for me. I said, that's my goal. Now, how do I do that? And that's why I kept adding layers to this process. And what I further added to that was in 2011, became the play-by-play voice for the Toronto Rock for the National Lacrosse League, and then continuing to do that to this day. So it's a whole process where you do the day job, and then when it was home, it was, all right, I'm working on my demo. I'm self-improving. I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm taking notes. I'm applying to other opportunities. I'm trying to network. So that was sort of, I still went out with friends, of course, like that, but it's like, I wasn't playing, video games for 8 hours. I was working on my craft. You do that year after year. And there's times you just sit back like, boy, I'm just spinning one of my, you just got to have that belief in yourself that you can keep going. Some people can do it. Some people can't, or circumstance, whatever, but you have to keep that belief in yourself that you're good enough, but also not arrogant in the sense that you got to take constructive criticism. You got to keep self-evaluating, have a critical eye, be the most critical of yourself, and reach out to different people. Like I got to have the great Brian Williams as a mentor just by a random call one day. Nicest guy you ever meet in your life. And who knows, like, don't think that just because it's a big company, it's a name, it's something that you don't belong, or that you can't get in, or somebody won't talk to you. They might not, but they might. And that's why you have to keep going ahead with that. A perfect example, guys, is I emailed, and I have a list about, and to this day, I still send emails out of the holiday season and all that, for about 4 straight years, a couple of Fox Sports contacts. 4 years. Hey, this is what I've been up to here. Anything? Okay, Andy, nothing right now. 2015, guy emails me back. Andy, our play-by-play guy for Fox Sports Detroit, can't do the men's Michigan Wolverines hockey game on this weekend in February. Can you come down? I'm like, absolutely. So went down and got that opportunity to do that and added that to the resume, which looks good, right? To be able to try that. But it takes that perseverance to get that opportunity that then you can showcase to other people. And that looks pretty cool on a resume, like Fox Sports doing that. So that's all a part of it. You have to have that drive. And if you got to work a full job, you just have to keep having that motivation and that belief.
We heard that too, Scott, before about, you're following your passion. And if if you're dogging it every day and you're exhausted and you're tired, then maybe it's not the right thing. But if you're saying, you know what, I love this and this is so what I want to do, I'm going to keep dipping my toe in the water wherever I can dip my toe, just to make sure that I can find out what's going to stick and what I can do. And so, yeah, nice message for sure.
Yeah. And it's a case you're right, where it wasn't like, it wasn't a chore. If it's a chore, you got to do something else or shift your focus. Right? You just can't do it. This was my passion that I used to motivate me more so even on the day job. Look, that's there. I'm going to get through that. And I'm going to excel at this. And also I added in from the very start as well in 2005, the sports writing side of it. And to try to make yourself that complete package. So my writing wasn't, the start of writing about hockey games or anything. It was for Slam Wrestling. I was writing about wrestling events I think I wrote for them for 5 years. A lot of cool people, a lot of cool situations. But that helped me also grow into writing for TSN, for DraftKings. I was a featured NFL columnist for Bleacher Report for a few years as well. Now my sports network, writing on a national level there also. And so you're able to bring that along. So when you talk to people, you're like, look, I can do your play-by-play. I can do your sports host. I can do your reporting. I can do your writing. What do you need? Right? And at different sports as well. Even if you have a favorite sport. If your favorite sport's hockey, great. That's probably the most oversaturated part of the business in Canada, because everybody likes it. It's great. I've had hockey as a big part of my broadcasting life as well. But you have to diversify a little bit. Okay, what's going to make you stand out? That's why, like for lacrosse, how many people do lacrosse, right? But it's a very cool national sport, and it allowed me to get some national broadcast exposure on TSN, on Sportsnet this past year, on Rogers, on whatever. And you're able then to say, okay, you just look a little more interesting to people as well, and diverse, because you got baseball, hockey, basketball, the volleyball, the wrestling, all that intertwined. So I would advise people to have the one thing, if you're passionate about sport X, great, dig in, make sure you're an expert there, but also try to look for areas like I did with the CFL of like, what's an area that's popular, that gets coverage, but maybe not enough, maybe not a lot, that you can try to become that expert in.
And how much does that build on your self-confidence too, Andy, when you can, I'm good at this, but I'm going to try to do this and see how it goes. That must be a real boost when you realize, hey, I wasn't great at maybe the first few times, but I can do this if I put myself to it.
Right. Hey, Angela, absolutely. It's a case where then you start getting that confidence of, all right, I'm outside the comfort zone a little bit. Like I started play-by-play, But the hosting on the CFL side, I'd never been a sports host before. I would rather not go back and listen to those first few episodes, I'm sure. Probably weren't great. But you get that confidence to build. You get that confidence of being able to say, okay, now I can do this. And when you're picking that extra niche, like the fantasy football stuff has been huge, because there's lots of fantasy football people, or fantasy sports in general, but in Canada, not as much. And so now I'm growing that. Now all of a sudden people start finding you, and you start being guests on different networks, different channels. Like today, a half hour before I came on with you guys, ESPN Houston radio station had me on to talk fantasy football and the Thanksgiving games. I got weekly hits, ESPN New Jersey, out in Saskatchewan, Calgary, Toronto, all that stuff. So you start having, especially if it's that area that is maybe popular, but not a lot of people are expert in or knowledgeable on, that's where you can start to differentiate yourself again. And once you start becoming the guest, people intro you, you keep those clips, you self-evaluate yourself again, and you use those. Your demo should be a continuing work of art. It should be a living thing where it never stops and you can always build on it.
So Andy, we were talking about confidence earlier. We had Coach Ramin on here, did a webinar on how to build your confidence. Chris Creamer, as Ange said, touched on it last week, getting the confidence to build his own website. You've been talking about emailing everybody at the beginning of your career, trying to make as many contacts as possible. But obviously with that came a lot of rejection and a lot of no-shows. So how did you deal with that and then keep building the confidence of working in the broadcasting industry?
Oh yeah. You have, honestly, if you send out 100 emails, you probably get 90% not getting back to you. A few, hey, thanks, not interested. But those couple that do get, it's kind of like golf, where you'll stink the whole round, but you'll get that one shot. You're like, ooh, okay, all right, that felt good. And that's sort of the same situation here. You get no's, you don't hear back, etc. But you get the one. Hey, you know what? I'm not the right guy. This guy is. Okay. Now all of a sudden, hey, your colleague so-and-so referred me. Okay. Send the stuff, get some feedback. Maybe that doesn't turn into a job, but it turns into a contact. And remember as well, people move around. Maybe this guy who's in this city gets another job at another city. Well, that one, you've been in contact with him for 2 years. Oh yeah, that Andy guy, he keeps, yeah, you know what? Okay, let's give him a call. That type of thing. So I always try to have the tunnel vision look of, as far as okay, I block out the negatives and go with the positives. And all right, so these guys didn't get back to me. I can't do anything about that. That guy did. I can do something about that. You control the controllables, and you have to have that belief. And to me, people not getting back or rejection or whatever motivated me more, because I know I can do this. I know, okay, that person doesn't want to, that's fine. Somebody's going to, and you keep going. And really, I had a pattern where I would go to different companies, school sites, whatever, and try to send at least 2, preferably 3 emails to 3 different people. If you go to, your different athletic institutions, you'll have different director of communications or different stations, communications manager. Send to 3. Send to the general contact. Hi, here's who I am. Make it short, but also ask. I like using the ask for help, hoping you can help me. People, if you're a decent person, most people want to help people, right? So there are some jerks out there. Most people like to help. So if you have that strategy to go through, and again, a whole bunch won't. People are busy. Maybe they miss it. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they will. And so you keep going that way. So I would send 2 to 3 to each company or whatever. And I would do that. I can still remember, I would do that night after night, every night. I'd say, okay, tonight I'm doing block of these 10 companies, 10 schools, 10 teams, whatever. And you just keep going through, you keep adjusting your list, and you go from there. And something like LinkedIn as well. Try to connect with everybody. Use it as an in.
Great advice there. Chris also talked about work-life balance, and we all know the sports industry is not a 9-to-5 industry. Yeah. Just how have you found that in your career, dealing with the family while doing sports and before your other job as well? Right.
Well, first of all, you got to have a spouse that has your back and is on your side. And I can say my wife 100% has that, because it can be tough. You have, especially young family. All right. Baby's crying. Oh yeah, I'm working till 1 a.m. Bye. You're coming in. You have to set those expectations with your partner, right? And be able to make sure on the same page and kind of go from there. And it is that balance. You have to make sure, and it's something I had to work at. You have to make sure you make yourself available. You can't be on your phone the whole time. You can't be like, when you're not working, you could do this job 24/7 and just have your head down the whole time and never look up. You have to set all on those blocks, set aside that timeline of, okay, this time every day, I'm going to do this family stuff or whatever. And make sure you have that, because you don't want to look up one day, you maybe didn't reach your goal. Your kids don't know you. And then you're just like, wow, what happened? Right. So you have to try to work that in while maintaining the focus. You have to make sure you work that family stuff and that balance. And also, even as far as if you don't have a family, make sure you still see your friends. Maybe you're not going out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. Maybe you go out one night a week, and you kind of go from there.
Absolutely. So let's go back to your career. I guess one of the big milestones in your career was getting the play-by-play job for the Toronto Rock in a professional sport. How did that come about?
I'll tell you, it's a funny story. So I was working as a, what do you even call it? I don't know, sales consultant, whatever, at a staffing firm, which essentially means you cold call like 100 people a day type of thing. And honestly, that type of job also helped me with the broadcasting side of getting rejected, because it's the same thing. You call 100 people, get out of here, And so I can remember this vividly. I had a desk facing north out the window in downtown Toronto. I was on Adelaide, and I just went through, for whatever reason, I saw something about the National Lacrosse League pop up. I thought, what? I used to love going to Rock games at the Gardens and at the ACC at the time and all that. So I do play-by-play, why not? So I called the New York office, cold called them, New York office, straight away it would have been, maybe like summer 2011, I think, something like that. And I cold called the New York office, got Doug. I'm still friends with Doug Fritz, the old national communication manager for the NLL. I said, this is who I am. Wonder if there's an opportunity. He goes, Andy, you'll never believe this. We literally, our play-by-play guy literally left today. We just started looking. Let's set up a call. Like, oh, all right. I got to learn more about lacrosse. Right. So it was like, do you know lacrosse? Like, love lacrosse. And I do. Did I know all the intricacies of it? No. So I had to make sure you do the research. I sent my demo over. They liked it. And all of a sudden, I'm doing play-by-play for a professional sports team out of the Air Canada Center in the same gondola, the Foster Hewitt Media gondola box, the same one that Leaf games are done out of. And I'm thinking, holy cow, like, this is incredible. And it's been able to grow from there, from what started back then as just really web streaming for the National Lacrosse League, grew into the TSN national broadcast when they picked them up. So I was doing that, and grew into, in the States as well, they have it with Turner Sports now. And so in the US, you get that exposure on the Turner Sports type of audience too. And it kind of goes from there. But again, it just went from a right place, right time, but also like the ability to just think, hey, you know what? I'm going to call. A lot of people I hear, they won't pick up. Well, maybe they do. In this case, they didn't. It's been 10 seasons.
Yeah, that's great. So did you take over for Joe Bowen? And then, like, who are some of your idols in the industry?
Oh yeah. So like, I believe Joe, when the NHL was on strike the one year, did the Rock play-by-play. And then when the NHL came back, he took over, or went back to the Leafs. So I'd say I probably have 3 real influences when it comes to the broadcast industry. Joe Bowen's definitely one. From wrestling, Jim Ross, good old JR, absolutely. And then just from a bigger picture, Foster Hewitt. Read his book when I was in high school, and just you talk about a grinder. That dude would sit on top of a tin roof with a mic, pouring rain, calling a game that who knows how long that signal reached back in like the 20s. Unbelievable. And to see that work ethic. So that would be not necessarily the style of Foster Hewitt, but you have that with the Jim Ross, with the energy, with just the little fun things he would put in there with Joe Bowen, and combining the energy but also the storytelling. And that's the part I really like, especially about radio, is you're able to tell the story. The listener, you're their eyes. So like when I was doing, and in 2015, I took over and was doing the play-by-play for the Hamilton Tiger Cats for the new TSN radio station for the CFL. And that was really cool because, again, if you're watching on TV, you see the images, and it's a lot of fun on the TV side too. But the radio side, you're the voice. You're telling the story. You're giving that game life. And in like great moments or goals, they're going to replay on different stations, whatever, your call. That was always really cool to me. Thinking like if championship games I've done, wow, not just the stations, but the guy who scored that goal. You know, that might be the biggest goal of his life. He's going to be going back, him and his family listening to that. You want to do that justice. So the storytelling, and then just the professionalism, energy, humor, and style of a Joe Bowen, Jim Ross, and Foster Hewitt would probably be my biggest influences.
Okay, so Ange said your title at Sportsnet to open up the webinar, and it almost sounded made up. That was National Fantasy Analyst. Do you have that there, Ange? What the title was?
Yeah, I do. It says Sportsnet's National Fantasy Sports Analyst.
All right, Andy. So what exactly is that position? How did it come about? And what are you doing now with that then?
Well, it's funny you say that because when I joined up with Sportsnet, when I left TSN for Sportsnet, they were kind of like, well, what do you want to be called? And I was like, well, how about this? They're like, yeah, okay. So it is made up. I made it up. It was that specific name of a position never existed before. It's a bit of a clunky name. What are you going to do, right? I don't know. But like so what with Sportsnet, what I was able to do, I wanted to take that next step in my career from the TSN side, where it started with the CFL podcast, grew into some play-by-play, grew into being a host on TSN radio. I want to take that next step and really own the fantasy side of things. And that opportunity wasn't at TSN. And so over the, it's again, context, going back to my Rogers TV days, kept in touch with these guys all those years and had the odd meeting here and there. And then eventually sent them a bunch of my stuff. Like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, you know what? We don't really have a fantasy presence. And so they're like, all right, well, let's work this in. And the support that they've given and the exposure that they've provided is absolutely unreal. Like, to have your fantasy articles or the fantasy minute videos that go up on Twitter every day at AndyMC81, to go out to almost 1 million people on social media is just like mind-boggling. When I look back, I'm like, wow, I was driving in rush hour and I was doing a men's volleyball game at Durham College. Like, how far that's come, and the work to get there to be that is pretty cool. And so it was a case where it was, all right, it wasn't just going to be one area of fantasy sports. It was going to be writing. It was going to be hosting on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and across the Sportsnet radio network as well, for regular sports talk shows, but also the fantasy show, doing social media videos like YouTube Live and all that for Sportsnet, and really sort of making all the multi-platform, being able to say, okay, anything fantasy sports on Sportsnet, I'm going to be involved with it. And that's really kind of what my goal was. And that's what it's been, entering into my second year by about a month now at Sportsnet.
And so
on that sorry, Scott, I was on that website today, and I'm like, all you see is Andy McNamara, Andy McNamara, McNamara. So yeah, it's you for sure.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of students that come in and say, hey, I'm really interested in doing the play-by-play, and I want to make this my career. So you've done it, persevered all the way through 16 years now, I think it is. You got your full-time job before age of 40, so you complete your goal. But what advice would you give those students that have a passion for it and want to try it out?
Right. And for sure, if you got a passion for something, there's a reason for it. Right. So don't let anybody, first of all, tell you it's dumb or no, you can't do it and all that. Now, if you don't put your all into it, you won't. But never take that. I've heard that. It's like, you're doing sales, it's like, okay, I don't listen. I try to keep everything very positive and keep that spin on it. So what I'd advise people is, if you want to do play-by-play, awesome. That's where I started. But don't close yourself off to other opportunities. Be as diverse as possible. Like I was saying, I got into this whole thing just wanting to do play-by-play. I get into sports. I love doing radio host. I love doing TV hosting or the social media hosting. I love writing. And that's what you have to do, because for play-by-play, especially like if you go in and your lone goal is, if I don't become the play-by-play broadcaster for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm not going to be happy. Everybody wants that job. Should you not try for that goal? Go for it, you know, but also have the realistic look of that's one job that how many people want, right? That's the thing. So if you want to be able to do play-by-play specifically, especially if you don't have a family situation. Now, things got a little tough with the COVID side, but hopefully once things get back to normal, if you can be mobile, if you can be on the move, there's a lot of jobs. And the money's not going to be great, okay? But there's a lot of jobs in the US or smaller markets in Canada. Like I had a couple opportunities where I could have gone to some in Missouri rural radio station to do play-by-play for the high school team. That didn't make sense for my situation. But if it does for you and it's in a sport you like and you can build, that's the direction that you're going to have to do. But you might have to be a little bit of a nomad. Now, if that doesn't work for you, that's why I would say try to try the radio side, or try the podcast side. The podcast side is easy. You can do that without anything. That's how the CFL stuff got started. We kept improving. It got picked up by CBC, TSN, and so on. But you want to make sure you're not just pigeonholing yourself, even into one sport. Like I said before, you want to be a hockey play-by-play guy? Cool. A lot of other people do. So also look into those other sports. Is there a baseball team in your market? Do they have access to some sort of rate? Even if the audience isn't big, even if the pay isn't that much or nothing at all at first, you want to try to get those reps. Don't do things for free just for doing it for free. But if it's a chance to get exposure to something that you haven't done, then both parties can benefit. So I would just say, don't keep with the focus, but expand so that, because maybe your diversity, maybe you got to go to a place that has play-by-play, but they need somebody to write and they need somebody to host their afternoon show. Well, if you only focused on play-by-play, you can't do those other things to get that play-by-play job. So try to expand.
And definitely seize the opportunity. Ange?
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, sometimes we'll hear from students, when they're fresh out of school, and I think they have some great goals, which is awesome, but then they'll turn down opportunities that I don't think they necessarily should, but it wasn't full-time, or it was, I had to drive an hour to get there, or those kinds of things. And again, as you mentioned, if it is your passion, then you got to follow it, and you won't be turning down those opportunities. So I like to keep coming back to lots of, I think your perspective is about be open-minded and, always learning and always growing, which is really great too, because I think those are two great keys and takeaways as well.
Absolutely. And the case for students like that, the recent grads, you're not going to be especially in this market. This was 50 years ago, maybe. You are not going to be handed a full-time professional play-by-play job, drive radio show, whatever professional thing off the bat. You're not. Okay. That's why if it's going to be an hour, if it's going to be part-time, if it's going to be whatever, you have to think, okay, don't just think of it from what you want. Think about what the employer is going to need. Why would they pay somebody with really no experience full-time money when you got a whole bunch of other guys who have 20 plus years who are desperate for a job? So think of it from that standpoint too. So, okay, is the part-time gig that takes you hour and a half to drive through ideal? No, but you got to make that your own. And if it's a chore, if you do it and you don't, then either the industry or that particular situation isn't for you. But you can't be turning down stuff. And you have to make it work. Everybody can make an excuse. Okay. Everybody can make an excuse. Are you going to be the one that takes the challenge when everybody else doesn't want to do it? You don't have to do the job forever either. Right? You do it for a full season. You get that, you move on, you make contacts. While you're doing that job, you're still reaching out to different people in that league. Or if it's a minor league, the league above that. Right. And so you have to keep going with it. But don't, if it's not, no, it's not the Blue Jays. Like, yeah, you're not getting the Blue Jays gig, man. You're not. It's not happening. So you have to try to look at it that way. What do you want to achieve, but how are you going to get there? And I'll tell you firsthand, would I have loved to be handed a full-time, this job that I have now right out of school? Hey, yeah, why not? But the satisfaction to be able to look back and see all the grind, everything you did, the stuff you worked on, the friends, the memories you made, the stuff you learned is so satisfying that those part-time stuff are going to teach you more than probably if you did just jump into something full-time.
I think so many careers mirror that as well, going up to the minor leagues and then getting the job you want, right, Ange? Like that's kind of what you were saying too, sometimes you don't want to play double A baseball, single A baseball, but you got to get to the major leagues through that a lot of times, unless you're really exceptional.
Well, yeah.
And I'm hearing from you a lot too, Chris, is something that I think we have conversations with students a lot too, is about the importance of those contacts. So right now I'm sitting in my office, which is inside the gym on campus or the fitness facility. And I always say to students, you never know who's going to be there. You know, you have somebody on a treadmill who's, you know, they say, oh, what are you in? I'm in dental hygiene. Well, actually my uncle's a dentist and they're looking for somebody right now. Like, you never know where those connections come from. So I get that a lot from you, that you really sought out lots of connections and were a dogged networker, and then also maintain those contacts as well, which is so important.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's a great example, Angela, as well. Yeah, like you never know. And again, people move around. People advance in their careers. Guy who's a producer one day might be an assistant program director in a couple of years, right? So to have that, and if you're like, for me, I'm sort of shy by nature at first. If I don't know people, I'm like, I don't want to bother people. But you just have to get past that and realize, and it's not always just asking people for stuff. Like, I've had people email before, can you look at my 2-hour demo? I'm like, your name is what? Like you have to also be reasonable. Hey, this is who I am. This is either what I'm looking for. Wondering if I could get a couple minutes of your time on the phone, have a little chat, and you build that rapport. Pick people's brains in the industry, how it goes. And for anybody watching here, you know, we'll give I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. If you guys want to reach out, I'd be happy to help or advise the best way I can with that also. But it's a case where you got to try to look at who do I first of all think does a great job. If you think someone does a really good job, go with them. Like Chris Cuthbert, for example, before he went over to Sportsnet, when I was doing the Hamilton Tiger Cat play-by-play for the CFL on the radio, I went and I talked to Chris. Nice, first of all, legit nicest guy. And Chris Cuthbert is the man. He's awesome. So I talked to him, and he gave me a copy of his setup, his play-by-play setup for football games, which had, you know, different position groups. I didn't have anything like that. I was kind of like paper. I didn't know. So something as nice that if I didn't go talk to him and, you know, just had a conversation, that never would have happened. That helped me out so much. So look to people who you think do a good job and try to reach out to them. And again, maybe they don't get back to you or whatever, but don't take it personally. You just have to keep trying. Volume is key. Volume contacts. Like I said, you like a team, a company, don't email one guy, email 3 people. You don't hear back from that, give it a few weeks. Change up the subject line. Change up how the email looks. Do it, personalize it, and keep going and going. And that's what I tried to do, and it you make some pretty cool contacts that way.
You've mentioned that a few times now about reaching out, even though it seemed lofty to you for you to reach out to Brian Williams, but reaching out to Brian Williams got you in contact with Brian Williams.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Right? Like the thing is, don't assume that people will say no. Now, they might, or they might not get back to you, but don't assume, because like Brian had told me, he's like, yeah, I don't get a lot of people like reaching out, probably because no one thinks he's going to get back to them. Guy's incredible. Now, don't everyone go email poor Brian Williams. All right. He's a busy man, but like that type of standpoint where you can build some pretty cool contacts and people and learn and just like, wow, and be motivated and hear their stories. We're hearing how I came up, to hear how these guys did what they did, little tricks, little bits of things. And then ultimately, yeah, who's a good contact? How should I approach this? And it might be something you don't even know.
Yeah, and I think you're right too, and we've heard this a lot. So as Scott mentioned, we had Chris Creamer on last week, and he was saying the same thing. And and reaching out to you to ask if you would do this with us. Lots of people are willing to help, and they want to help. Like, especially this is your alma mater, and you have a sense of connection with us at Durham College, even though you and I are meeting for the first time today. And I think people do want to give back, and they do want to help when they can. And those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. So if somebody does reply to you, then awesome. But you won't know that unless you reach out, like you said. So yeah, and again, we appreciate your time for being here with us.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And it is a case where without Durham College, without that opportunity, I wouldn't be doing this. I really wouldn't. I don't know what I would have done next. I wouldn't have given up, but this was such a great spot with the right time, surrounded by people in a place that I'm so comfortable with, it's a really good feeling being able to start here, to grow there, and then be able to continue on and try to give back in however useful the people watching find it.
And I think what you said too is great, that, this is a spot that you can learn and you can make mistakes, and it's okay. So again, just referring to my own area, we have personal trainers or group fitness instructors who are doing that role for the first time, and they're so nervous, but people are understanding. We know we're an institution of learning, and we're training, and what a great spot to try something out. And we talked about dipping your toe in the water, if it's in broadcasting, if it's in play-by-play, if it's in the dental hygiene clinic, if it's here on campus as a trainer, whatever, it's a great spot to try things and to try as many different things as possible, because I also think that makes your experience on campus that much richer as well.
Oh, for sure. And again, try to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Like, again, I'll use the volleyball example. Like, I played volleyball in like grade 7, and I didn't know, I'm not a diehard volleyball fan. Grew to love the sport. Absolutely love it. It's amazing. It was like the Durham Lords volleyball was so fun. I look forward to people like volleyball. Yeah, I wouldn't have known if I didn't try. And I tried it because that was the opportunity to get reps. It's all about reps, just like with athletes, right? You're a basketball player. You're bad at free throws. Keep taking free throws. You're bad at whatever. Keep doing that. And so I would encourage people, even if you want one specific thing or sport, take yourself out of it and try a different area, because that's going to help. And it might open up opportunities you didn't even realize, because it's happened to me so many times. I can't emphasize that enough. Try to do something that maybe is a little bit out of your comfort zone.
And just to go back to your Brian Williams point about networking, just how satisfying is it for you to be getting emails from young students wanting to get into the industry now? Like, do you see yourself in those students sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. It is pretty cool. And when you have somebody as selfless like Brian Williams was, Vic Router's another one. Oh gosh, there's so many. I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's so many over. Jim Taddy, my gosh, watching Jim as a kid, get to work with him. What a thrill at TSN. Like, Jim's a tremendous guy and a real learn by example type guy in professionalism. And you pick up little things, even as simple as, like, on the radio side, how to come in and out of breaks. Might seem simple to people. I hear it, all people butchering it. You come in smooth, you intro a guest. It's all part of the art form. It's all part of being that conductor. And so when I get people emailing me and like, hey, can I ask you a couple? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I will. And it's all about, I try to tell the people, look, I can't put the work ethic in you. Okay. You got it. You got that drive, or you don't. And if you do, I am happy to help, assist, guide, have ideas bounce off as much as you want. But it's a case where you got to realize, to make this, especially today, even more so than when I started, especially today, this is going to be a grind. You're not going to get rich quick. Okay. You might not get rich at all, but you have to try and keep building and stacking. And eventually you'll look back, you're like, you've built something up pretty good. But it happens slowly, and sometimes you don't even notice it.
I like that you mentioned Vic Router as well, because you can watch the network. He's doing bowling, he's doing F1, he's
curling. Yeah,
he does it all, right? So
perfect example of that. And look at Brian Williams too. Guy's done baseball, hockey, horse racing, hosting the sport shows, whatever, right? Like, there's so much that he's done. And that's another example. Someone needs you to do something? Yeah, I'll try it.
So a lot of great messages there, Andy. I'm just going to throw out a couple of random questions for the fantasy sports analyst there about the NFL season. We'll do kind of rapid fire. We won't go too long with that. It might bore some people, but thanks again for the messages. A lot of great messages that you had there. Are your Cleveland Browns for real this year, or are they going to fall off the cliff?
I think they're for real, Scotty. I think so. I think they're for real because you got the head coach. So, and I think you have the running game, you have the offensive line, you have the formula to succeed. Now, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think this is a definite playoff team, which for the first time since probably Bill Belichick was their head coach in 1994, you have a disciplined head coach and a message where you have management and the coach in lockstep and the offensive pieces to really go forward. So I just hope injuries don't sidetrack them too much.
Okay. a couple more teams here. The Baltimore Ravens, are they going to make the playoffs?
I think they might get that 7 seed. I would not be surprised, Scott, if they don't. That team is on the decline, and it's because of the predictability of their offense. Now, Lamar Jackson, reigning MVP, you cannot deny the man's athleticism. But when you're one-dimensional and the strategy for defenses is to make your quarterback throw the ball, that's a problem. And so now you have all this, teams know, stack the box, funnel Lamar Jackson, keep him, don't blitz, keep him contained, make him throw. And so now it's going to be up to him and that Baltimore offense to try to adjust. And they're sounding frustrated, right? You have John Harbaugh not shaking people's hands, freaking out at players on a logo. You have Lamar Jackson saying, people don't want us to win. Well, yeah, if you're not a Ravens fan, you don't want you to win. And say, complaining about defenses, a lot of things creeping up.
And then last question, Ken Babcock, athletic director at Durham College, is saying Josh Allen is not a real NFL quarterback. He's no good.
Oh,
what would you say to someone like that says that?
Oof. Now, listen, I love Ken Babcock. Ken is the man. I love him. Love you, Ken. However, I completely disagree. I think Josh Allen is the real deal. And Scotty, I'll tell you why. It's because you look at, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking to begin with. You look at the progression of Josh Allen. You look how he improved from the Senior Bowl to the Combine to year one. And a big part of it is having the continuity of the same head coach and offensive coordinator. Baker Mayfield's had 4 different offensive coordinators. Sam Darnold's had 2 or 3. Jumbled up while trying to learn the league, it's almost impossible. You have Josh Allen with all that raw talent. It was at first terrible footwork. Well, he improved that. He can't hit the short ball, too much zip on it. He took some off. Oh, now the deep ball is not accurate. Okay. Beginning of this year, teams would say, we're going to make you beat us with your deep ball. And he did. Oh, all right. Well, what about the intermediate throw? He learned that too. And we see that progression. I think personally, out of that 2018 draft class that had Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen, of course, Josh Rosen, he's done. So we don't worry about him. But you have that class. I think out of that group, Josh Allen has the highest talent ceiling out of any of them. I don't know if he's going to reach it, but every year he keeps getting better, and you don't often see that.
Well, his career is almost progressing your career, like starting up to where it is. Ange,
that's right.
Any final remarks there, Ange? I got my football fix in there.
No, that's great. I've been making some notes while we've been chatting, and I think I've kind of mentioned most of them already. But I think some of my takeaways for sure, Andy, would be your open-mindedness, not to look at a situation that you haven't done and just close the door on that. Being prepared to learn new things, the networking, the hard work that it takes, sacrifice, the importance of those contacts, and willingness to reach out, even if it seems like kind of a lofty idea. So I think those are amazing things for anybody, really, not if you're just starting out. But I was listening to something the other day talking about how many people. 67% of people right now are looking for a different job because they've realized they're not happy with what they're doing. So for anybody at any stage of their career, some really important things that all of us can keep in mind, I think. So again, so appreciative of your time. Yeah, again, we can't thank you enough.
Oh, no, well, thank you for having me. And I would say this as well, for people who want, like you said, sort of in any career, you can't always just jump in, especially if you don't have, you have to earn money. If you have a family, you got to earn money. So if you want to take a new job or a new career path that you don't have experience in, you got to start somewhere. So that's why for me, I did all those years of full-time day job and work into the evenings and weekends of the sports industry, and take pride too in what you do. Never look at it as a minor league job or just a school job. Own it. I love the Durham College stuff. I came in, man, I looked at that logo every game. I was like, all right, that's a part of me. That's how I felt. Then you go to the Maple Leafs. All right, that's a part of me now. That's the Toronto Rock, and you build it, and you take ownership and pride. If you look at it well, this isn't the Blue Jays. It's not the NFL. It's not NHL. You're not going to succeed. You're not. You got to make that your own, because then you do that. You show people you have that professionalism, that passion at that level. What's that going to be when you start climbing?
And I just want to say, you certainly left your mark at Durham College and Ontario Tech, and your poster is still on the wall there in the is with the Freak logo and saying "with Andy McNamara." So it's still there. And you definitely left your mark.
Thank you. Well, I still have a couple of posters that you guys gave me, the laminated ones. I still got a couple of those downstairs as well. So I love those. Absolutely.
And when you say downstairs, you mean like up in your rec room or whatever, like not tucked away in your storage room?
Yeah. Yeah. I got no. So this is the upstairs office. This is sort of the best lighting for it. But in the rec room downstairs, absolutely, I got him up on the wall, man. I do.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And yeah, if you don't mind students reaching out, I think they might really be interested. So
Yeah, please.
yeah, and I think you guys are so gracious about that. Chris did the same thing last week, so yeah, I really appreciate that, because we know that's extra time out of your day as well to reach out and give some guidance where you can.
Yeah. So if it's LinkedIn, if it's Twitter, whatever, just say, I'm so and so, and I saw you on the Durham, just so I get a little scatterbrained sometime with all the different stuff I'm doing. So just remind me, and yeah, happy to chat, whatever, and do that and try to give back and help sort of guide hopefully the next generation.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you again so much. Yeah, stay well, stay healthy, and have a great holiday.
Absolutely. You too, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.